Hi, everyone. Welcome to yet another podcast episode. Today, we have a very special guest, Ume. You might have seen Ume all over your Instagram, especially if you're on the lookout for internships. I know she's been a huge help for me, and I always look forward to seeing her videos. So we're so happy to have Ume here. Ume, would you like to introduce a little bit more about yourself?
Yeah, thank you so much, Shreya. I am so excited to be here. My name is Ume. I'm a student at Maryland studying information and computer sciences. I have worked as a full stack engineer in big tech, luxury beauty, and also banking and fintech. And I'm currently working at Microsoft as a backend engineer.
That's amazing. So Ume, my first question to you is, what drove you to this career path and social media? How does social media fit within the sphere of what you're doing?
Yeah, so just a little bit about my journey into CS. So growing up, I was always very, I guess, good at math, and I loved math. I loved anything that had to do with numbers. And I knew eventually in college and even in high school, I was going to take the most advanced math courses and eventually become a mathematician. And something that I knew I always had as a side was a creative mind as well. So I've also been into nail art since sixth grade, and I would say I've gotten pretty good at it. And so I've always wanted to kind of combine my creativity along with my love for math. And in middle school, my older brother actually introduced me to a coding platform called Code Academy, where you basically get to learn the basics of coding, and I wasn't doing any intense data structures or algorithms. I was just doing, if statements and assigning values to variables, but I instantly fell in love with it. And that was one of those moments where I thought to myself, this is something that if it's a possibility, I didn't know what CS was. I didn't know that it was a major career field. I was thinking to myself, if this is something that is possible, I really want to do this. So when I got to high school, I took more computer science classes, and that's where my mind was pretty solidified on the fact that, okay, I'm going to do this in college and later on as well. And in terms of why I started social media and how that kind of fits into what I do, you know, back in high school when I took my very first computer science class, I am sure if you've also taken CS courses, you notice that there aren't many people that look like us. And that's something that stuck out to me very, very, very early on. And I was very lucky because I had my teacher was a woman, and she was also open to having these kinds of discussions and conversations with me. And I started doing things within my school community to kind of fix that, stereotype, and try to get more people that were underrepresented in tech to sign up for CS classes, specifically women. And when I got to college, I thought it would get a little bit better, but it only got worse. And not only did it get worse, I remember going in as a CS major, I tried to make friends. I tried to ask for help occasionally, and no one wanted to help me. No one wanted to be my friend because everyone sees each other as competition. And there's also and a really big part of that is also a gatekeeping culture. And I had to figure out a lot of things the first 2 years myself. I got, my very first software engineering internship all by myself. I didn't know how tech interviews worked. I didn't know that there were technical portions of interviews. I didn't know that they were basically like coding tests. And so when I went into that, it was a complete shock to me, that this is how coding interviews work. They're actually structured in terms of like tests. And so, when and I think a really big part of why we see less and less underrepresented and specifically women in tech is because of gatekeeping cultures like this. I went into college with a pretty with a pretty set mind on doing CS and becoming a software engineer. But a lot of people go into college not knowing what they want to do. They try out CS classes, they try out other courses, and they're just trying to figure out what they want to do. And so if you're immersed into an environment where there is such a gatekeeping culture, people are mean to you, people don't want to be your friend, people see you as competition. If you're just trying it out, then no wonder no one wants to continue pursuing that. And so I also didn't know where to look for opportunities. I didn't know that there were opportunities for people like me. And so that's why I started my page to provide these opportunities for people that are going through the same things that I used to be going through, because eventually when I got to meet more and more and more people, I could kind of lay back on that part. I could kind of sit back and relax, and the opportunities eventually came to me, which I'm so privileged about. But there are so many people out there that still don't know where to look. And so I'm glad that, I'm able to have that platform where they can come to my page and find these opportunities where they wouldn't really be able to find anywhere else or wouldn't know where to look.
I completely agree.
Yeah, and I think the point where you mentioned that it's such a hard field to break into, especially for women, definitely I feel that because I'm in data science here at UT, and it's very much there's a lot of competition, especially because we're a very niche part of like the broader picture of CS. Um, and talking about like reaching out to those communities that are underrepresented. I know that social impact is something you really value through your experiences at Klossy and all the other things that you do. And I've been an IA at Klossy, and I definitely know the community is something that's super special. So keeping in mind the context of what the work that you did at Klossy, can you tell us a little bit about how you've manifested like social impact into your professional career and in the field of content creation that you're in?
Yeah, so I've been involved with Code with Klossy for 6 years now. This I was first a scholar in 2018, and I would say I've kind of worked my way up into an intern position, which is what I have done the past 2 years. And I think one of the things that really helped me in this sense was even from the very first summer that I IA'd for 2 summers, I made my intentions so clear to the team. I told them, this is what I'm passionate about. This is what I want to improve upon. This is what I want to do. And honestly, I think that that really helped me, because even if they didn't, I'm not saying that they didn't, but even if they weren't able to directly provide opportunities for what I wanted to do, they helped me grow certain skills. And, on the other hand, they also did provide me with a lot of opportunities that I took advantage of. I got to work at Estee Lauder a couple summers ago as a software engineer intern, and I got to do that through Code with Klossy. And, fashion and beauty is also really a big part of my life. So having that kind of experience where I was able to intersect the two was really cool, and something that they also knew that I really wanted to do. And another thing is, from again, the very first moment I started eyeing, I told one of my managers, I said, hey, I really want to get into public speaking. I think my message could resonate with so many. And, again, I made my intentions very clear. And for the next honestly 4 years, they really helped me not only grow those skills, but give me opportunities such as being a speaker series co-host to grow those skills. And I think that that goes hand in hand with, my presence on social media, and also just my message and my platform, because I honestly wouldn't be where I am if it weren't for Code with Klossy, if it weren't for a lot of the other things that I do. I think me being in the position that I'm in today is a culmination of so many things that I've done the past 2, 3 years. And Code with Klossy has played such a huge part. And I think one of the reasons it's played such a big part is because, again, I made my intentions very clear. I've always been the kind of person that knew what I wanted to do. And when I set my mind to something, I make sure that I, end up doing that, unless I make a complete 180. But I had my mind set on certain things, and I told the team, this is exactly what I want to do, where I want to go. And I think that that ended up helping a lot.
Yeah, and I know that you spoke about how like giving opportunities to people who didn't have it before, don't know that they're out there, is a big part of your platform. And I know you've had a few quite amazing experiences working with Estee Lauderdale, working with JP Morgan, working with Microsoft. Do you think you can give us a few insights, especially the students who are listening in, on how you found these opportunities and how you really like got your foot in the door?
Yeah, so my very first software engineering internship was at JP Morgan, and I actually got that internship through a career fair. And I'm sure a lot of schools are still hosting virtual versions of career fairs. I know most of them host in-person career fairs now, but this was 2 years ago, and I went to a virtual career fair, and I was only planning, and I didn't really walk in with the intention of landing an internship. I just wanted to kind of explore, what was out there. I wanted to explore how career fairs even worked because, again, I had no idea how they worked because no one wanted to tell me. No one gave insights. So I knew I was meeting with two people, Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan, and I remember this so vividly. And I met with the Goldman Sachs representative, and then I met with the JP Morgan representative. And I say representative because they weren't a recruiter, they weren't a hiring manager, they were representative. They were just there to talk about JP Morgan. And the really cool part was I gave him my resume. I didn't have any personal projects, and this is something that people actually find kind of shocking. I've never had a personal project even till today. I think the only personal project I've had is the one that I did at Code with Klossy 6 years ago. Um, but I had a lot of experience under my belt that was CS related, but also that spoke towards a lot of my passions, a lot of things that I did for DE&I initiatives and things like that. So I had a lot to talk about during my interviews. And I also, at the same time had experience in CS and software. So I remember I just created a really cool connection with him. Literally, I think we had 10-15 minutes during our Zoom call and we couldn't go over. And we literally milked it till the last second that we were able to. And he was able to, he told me, he said, you should apply to the SEP program, which is what they call it. And just let me know if you apply and message me on LinkedIn and I will let the recruiter know. And so that's essentially what happened. And I fast forwarded the entire not fast forwarded, but I was able to kind of expedite my process in a way, because I was able to contact him and ask him, hey, I remember I applied and I hadn't heard anything for a couple weeks and I said, hey, I haven't heard anything. And he said, oh, let me reach out to the recruiter. And the next day I heard back. And then after I took my OA, and it had been, I think, a week, I said, I messaged him again. I was like, I haven't heard anything. And he said, okay, let me get back to you. And then the next day I heard something. So that was really nice. And that was really cool. And that's why I think career fairs are so important. And just meeting people face to face is really important rather than, I think a lot of people will cold message folks on LinkedIn and even online. And, sometimes it could definitely work, but I think now more than ever, in person and face-to-face interactions matter more than ever. But that summer, I guess I started to take a LinkedIn a little seriously. I posted, I think, 2 times that entire summer I interned at JP Morgan. And that following recruiting season, so that August, I ended up getting a flood of DMs from recruiters. And that's actually how I landed my internship at Cisco, was through a DM from a recruiter on LinkedIn. And then at Microsoft, I just cold applied on the website. I remember I'd been applying to Microsoft for 3-4 years and I got rejected or ghosted every single year. And I thought the same thing was going to happen. And I ended up hearing back about 5 months after I applied, which was crazy. So
That's
I love
amazing.
It's been I feel like going through all the internships has been such a like varied experience, but they've all like built on top of each other.
exactly.
So I think you've given a lot of insight on different pathways to get an internship rather than just like applying to 500 and then only hearing back from like one or two.
Yeah, exactly. And something that and this past recruiting season, I actually only applied to 35 companies. And I know a lot of people, most people apply to hundreds, if not thousands of companies. And I had, I think, above an 80% success rate with getting interviews. And I point that out because I think applying with intention and focusing on the quality of your application matters now more than ever. And that's something that I don't think a lot of people pay attention to. And that's something that I would really, really, really recommend. And my biggest piece of advice is to focus on the quality of each application rather than just hitting submit 1,000 times.
Yeah. And when you mention quality, what is like the biggest thing that you notice, like, um, is the biggest thing that brings quality to someone's application? Like, what would you focus on, really like honing in?
Yeah, so one, there's this excuse me, there's this job site called Ripple Match, and I think Ripple Match is very nice because you are able, they ask you kind of college-like questions, college application-esque questions where they're like, hey, why do you want to apply here? What, what do you bring to the table and things like that. So you can kind of advocate for yourself. You can be your own advocate and hype yourself up in that situation. In a regular situation where you just apply with a resume, there isn't much you can say besides what's on that one-page resume. And so I think job sites like Ripple Match really help. On the other hand, I think cover letters matter now more than ever as well. I know a bunch of my friends who applied with cover letters and literally had almost 100% success rate with getting interviews. So cover letters matter a lot because it's also, if you don't apply via Ripple Match, that's totally okay. Cover letters are kind of a substitution for that. They're a space for you to kind of, again, hype yourself up in a small sense and also kind of mention why you're a good fit for this company. And so one thing I noticed was a lot of companies notice now they're essentially investing in you if they're hiring you. So if they feel as if they're just another submission button to you, that they're just another, click to you, chances are you're probably not going to hear back. But if you really work on the quality of that application, make sure it is as great as you can get it. And also, if you're able to go a step up and meet recruiters who are at that specific company at a conference, at a networking event that your school is hosting, then that's a really big plus. And that will help your chances tremendously. Recruiters would rather you go to them and tell them, hey, I applied to this job. This is my job application number. I would love to chat more, whatever that is. Then say, hey, I really want a job. Can you hire me? Can you give me a job? Because they do not want to hear that. That is the last thing that they want to hear.
Completely agree.
Yeah, and you mentioned that, your resume didn't have any personal projects, but you kind of talking to the representative at the virtual fair helped you kind of see where your application was at in the process. And besides just like personal projects, because I know that's something people do put on their resumes, can you give us some insight on how much like academic performance, such as GPA or the classes you've taken, or even like your major, might impact your internship roles? Because I know a lot of people, they might want to break into CS as an internship, but they might be in another major. So how do you think that affects the recruitment process?
Yeah, so the first thing I'll say is I always tell people leave your GPA off of your resume. If a company really wants to see how you did academically, they'll ask for a transcript. If they don't ask for a transcript and they don't explicitly ask for your GPA on the job application, there's no reason that you should put it. The only time I say it's fine, like you can put it, is if you have a 4.0, which, great, could help your chances tremendously. But other than that, I really don't think having your GPA is important. Most people that I know leave their GPAs off and they have such a great success rate, again, with interviews and landing offers. The second thing I'll say is, in terms of what major to pursue, I think it ultimately depends. So at my school, the information science major is a tech major, but it's not very theory heavy. It's not very programming heavy. So if you just pursue information science, I know a lot of people get sweet internships from information science, but more likely than not, it's because they do things outside of the major that help them. And on the other hand, obviously, if you pursue computer science, you have a very good chance at landing a software internship. But also, I think a lot of people forget that you can also be a math major and still land software internships, because a mathematics major teaches you how to think. This is how I kind of think about programming, is a lot of the syntax can be taught. A lot of the syntax you can pick up on just by practicing a few times and learning, hey, this is how you write a variable. This is how you write an if statement. This is how you write a ternary operator. That is all easy to learn. What's hardest to learn when you're programming or becoming a software engineer is how to solve problems, is how to think. And a mathematics major teaches you how to do that. Through the many mathematics courses you take, whether they're theory-based courses or non-theory-based courses. So the thing about computer science is, again, it is a more theory-based major, but it's a lot more programming heavy rather than math, which is non-programming. But then also there's computer engineering, which, if you wanted to go into hardware engineering and not software, that would be kind of the route that you would want to head down. But I know a lot of people, they go into college pursuing a computer engineering degree, realize that they actually don't really care for hardware. They don't want to do that. And then they drop down to CS. So the nice thing is, at least at my school, at the University of Maryland, if you are a computer engineering major and you drop down to computer science, most of those courses are transferable. So it's not as if you're going to be behind or anything. So I'm not sure how that works at other schools, but I would say Comp E, mathematics, and CS would be your best bet into landing a software internship. But if it's more data science, I know a lot of people who pursue information systems will end up doing data science, and also information science who end up doing data science. Because again, data science, I don't think, obviously I'm not in data science, so I can't speak 100%, but I don't think it's as intense of, learning algorithms and data structures. So that's why it's easier for people to break into data science through information science or information systems.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And also, like, I was exploring your LinkedIn. You have like an amazing LinkedIn page. For any of the students who are listening, do you have any advice or like key recommendations for how they can optimize their LinkedIn or optimize their resume?
Yeah, definitely. So LinkedIn is your best friend when you're looking for jobs, and the better your LinkedIn profile is, the better off you'll be. The first thing, and this is something that you would think is pretty common knowledge, but I've actually seen a lot of profiles that don't follow this, is having a good profile picture, trying to refrain from selfies, graduation shots, having peace signs in your photos. I think having a regular headshot is fine. You don't need a professional camera for that. You can just ask a friend to take a photo of you behind a blank wall, and that's perfect. So profile picture matters a lot, because it's one of the first things that someone who's going to go onto your profile is going to see. And, along with that, your headline also matters a lot. I see a lot of people put in their headline seeking job opportunities, looking for data science roles. And I would say remove that. That is only hindering your chances of landing a role. If anything, put a few key notable parts about who you are, about what you do. So if you're studying computer science at, UT Dallas, then put CS at UT Dallas. If you're studying whatever major at whatever school, put that down. And then also, if you are an aspiring software engineer, put aspiring software engineer. If you have received any accolades, any awards, not really like school awards as like dean's list, but like major awards, then you can maybe put a couple of those in your headline. So you really want to make that headline something that pops out, and something that if someone were to look at your profile picture and look at your headline, they think, whoa, this is really interesting, I want to learn more, and they click on your profile. And so then, I would also just say have everything pretty up to date. Also having a bio that speaks towards who you are, kind of reflects a little bit of your personality. I know some people choose to go the third person route and others choose to go the first person route. I choose to go the first person route just because I feel as though I can kind of reflect a little bit of what my personality is like through my bio, not 100%, but somewhat. And I think that that helps me a lot. And then also just, again, keeping all the experiences up to date and making sure that you're trying to put as many descriptions as you can.
Mhm. That's wonderful advice. And I'm going to probably optimize my LinkedIn after this. Tria, do you have a question?
Yeah, so um, going off of your background as a first gen student, what advice would you give to other first gen students out there, and kind of what motivates you to be a voice for them?
Yeah, so growing up, I have four siblings, and I was always the most, I would say, academically motivated. And, I also grew up not with any financial privilege. I grew up in a very, very like poor part of Baltimore. And, you know, I I would see everyone around me getting these things, even getting like Barbie dolls, and I wasn't able to get those things and live the life that I wanted to. And I am so lucky because I had parents who would encourage me. And I know a lot of people don't end up having that, even if they're, first gen students. And I was very privileged to have at least, the kind of parents that would encourage me, tell me to be the best that I could be. And I knew eventually my level of content would be I would want to provide the life that, I wanted to live for myself. And it's not that I wanted to buy a $100 million mansion for myself. I just wanted to live more comfortably than I grew up. And I know that, especially in my culture, a lot of women are actually not, like, even if they are first gen, they maybe go to college for a year and then they drop out and maybe they, go get married or whatever that is. And that's so normalized. And I think that at least for me, I've always been someone who was hyper independent, wanted to do things for myself and not ever depend on anyone else. And I think because of that, I've always really valued education so much because that's something that no one can take away from you. So, and that's something that even now, I was just talking to my sister about this last night, which is crazy, but I was like, it makes me sad that a lot of, women in our culture will get married at such a young age and not pursue an education because that's something that, it's something that will allow them to have a foot to stand on. And, they don't have that if they don't pursue an education. And so I like being the voice for first gen students, especially women, because I think it's so important to emphasize the importance of education. And even if, some people don't want to do things with the degree that they get, that's totally okay, but that's something that no one is going to ever be able to take away from you. That's something that is set in stone and something that, you have because of your hard work. And, I think it's a really good reminder that if you really want a certain life, if you want something out of, your hard work and you want a certain outcome, you can truly make it happen. You really just have to work for it. And I say that because I literally grew up with no privilege at all. I grew up like it's crazy because I kind of think about it a lot too, about like where I started and where I'm at now. And I think it's really just a culmination of, again, my supportive parents and having teachers that encouraged me, and also just having that kind of mindset where I thought to myself, I'm gonna do this no matter what because I want to have a foot to stand on. And that's what I encourage everyone else to do, even if they're thinking about, I think I want to drop out of school, I think I might not want to pursue this degree. Well, if you want to have a foot to stand on, education is a great thing to have. And that's something that I think even people who are like, you don't need a college degree, most of the things you learn in college are useless, but they teach you how to think. They teach you how to kind of think critically and interact with people. You will never be near as many people as you are near in college. And I think there are so many pros of college and pursuing a post-secondary education. So I'm a very big advocate for getting a degree and getting an education.
Yeah, I actually completely agree. I think education is one of like it's actually something that's pretty important to me too. I do a lot of like work, like social impact work and that, but I completely agree. Even my parents, like education is like the biggest thing that you can do, especially like as a student. Like that's one of like the main things that you have to like completely focus on, and it
Mhm.
really teaches you like who you are. I think the way that you study, the way that you think about things. Do
Right.
you like learning? Like
Mhm.
how much you love like learning about the world, how much you love like really improving yourself. So I completely agree. And I know that like near to like wrapping up, like what are some of the best experiences you've had like throughout your internships, like standout experiences, whether that be at Microsoft or your previous experiences?
Yeah, so one of my favorite experiences at Microsoft, and this is talking more holistically, is having a team that is so supportive. I have had work experiences in the past where I was kind of just thrown into something and expected to do it without much guidance at all. And I think and when I would ask questions, they would kind of be perceived not well because I wasn't supposed to ask questions, and that's something that I didn't really like because interns are supposed to ask questions. Internships are for learning. And so one of the things that I love about Microsoft is they've really just treated me as if, I know nothing and I'm starting from the ground up. And even if I say, oh yeah, I know a little bit more, I know a little bit about this, they'll still tell me about it from scratch so I can fully understand it. And one thing I say is I have never learned so much during an internship than I have at this internship because of how well my team has kind of carried me through this internship and trusted me to do certain things and trusted me to complete certain things on my own. And I really value that because that's not something that is found everywhere, but I'm very grateful for that. And another great experience, it was at JP Morgan a couple summers ago, that I loved that internship so much. And that's something that if you would have asked me midway through my internship, I would have told you absolutely not, because midway through the internship, I genuinely thought I wasn't meant for software engineering, and it wasn't my team's fault. I had an incredible team. There was just so much to learn, and I just got in my head. I thought that I would know everything. I didn't know that as an intern, I was allowed to mess up. I was allowed to ask questions. And so I remember getting my very first big task done for my project, and I truly felt like I was on top of the world. I was like, yep, software engineering's for me. I'm going to do this for the next however many years, and I couldn't imagine myself any other way. So I'm very grateful for that. And overall, I think it's great being someone who just defies the tech stereotypes. I think I just love being a woman in tech, and I love just being someone who defies stereotypes every single day, whether that's the way that I dress to the office or, the way that, maybe I'll speak up during meetings because women don't normally do that. I think it's just, there are so many great things about being an underrepresented person, even though, in the grand scheme of things, it might not seem that great, but you just kind of have to find the positives of it.
Yeah, I completely. I think you've given like such great advice. Yeah. Yeah, Shreya, your turn.
Yeah, so, you are graduating in December. How does that feel?
Yeah, I am definitely nervous. I'm thinking that I might push it back another semester just because I don't want to be an adult. And the thought of just being thrown out into the world scares me. You would think, and this is something that I say to literally everyone. People on social media, online seem like they have their entire lives together, and I am so far from that. I'm like, I feel like a mess. I do not want to graduate. I don't want to be an adult. It's definitely a bittersweet moment. So I honestly don't know if I still will be graduating December 2024, maybe May 2025. But as of now, it's just scary. But I think at the same time, it's kind of exciting because you're moving into the next phase of your life. And I think post grad can be very exciting for a number of reasons.
Yeah.
Yeah, even me and Shreya, like we're rising sophomores right now, and the first year college was done, like we're roommates. So I looked over to her and I was like, "Oh my God, bro! Like we're one-fourth the way done. That's so sad. We're gonna
Oh,
leave in
it
three
goes
years."
by so fast.
Okay.
I think back to my freshman year and I'm like, freshman year was just yesterday. There was no way I'm about to turn 23 in a few months and I'm a whole adult. That is not okay.
Yeah, and it's so weird, like seeing incoming freshmen, and you're like, "Wait, like that's me. Like, what are you
Right?
talking about?"
I
Yeah.
know, I know. And it's weird because so I was actually supposed to graduate this past semester, but I decided to take an extra. So I'm literally gonna push back graduation by a year. But it's crazy because now I'm gonna go on campus this upcoming semester, and literally everyone's going to be new. Like no one I know is gonna be there, and it's just gonna be such a weird environment. I'm not ready.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what are your like long-term goals after you graduate? What do you see yourself doing in, I know this is like a hard question to answer, but like 5, 10 years, any number of years.
Yeah, so this is a question that I always tell people I dread this question because again, being an adult scares me. But
Yeah.
I probably will see myself working as a software engineer for a few years at least, maybe 3 to 4 years. And then eventually I do see myself moving into kind of tech and business and moving into the entrepreneurial side of tech and hopefully starting my own company somewhere in like near my late 20s. I think that would be really exciting. I've always had a just, a knack for making things, and just I would say I have a pretty business savvy brain, so I love the business side of a lot of things, and I think if I can combine a lot of my tech experience with that would be really cool. And yeah.
Yeah, it's really
That's
cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I also want to like go into like entrepreneurship. Like I've already started a bit in in college. But like I'm majoring in finance. So like my goal is to like work on Wall Street for like 4 years and then shift into like entrepreneurial stuff. But it's cool. I think like entrepreneurship is something that like anyone can do. And it's really like satisfying. But I think sometimes like people like jump the gun. Like it's great to like have a good like foundation of knowledge before you like really like put yourself all in on something.
Exactly.
And like working and building a startup is, I think, a really valuable experience. I've been interning at a couple of startups this summer, so I can definitely can tell like tackling a problem and trying to find a niche solution is something that's really, really special, and it'll just be a really good experience, I feel like. Especially if you're gonna do that later in your 20s after you have a lot of experience from these like big companies at like Microsoft, JP Morgan, all of that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I know that we've been talking about like internships, right? So, uh, like getting the internship, interviewing for it. How do you think like a student after they get an internship can make the most out of that experience?
Yeah, I would say one, just get to know your coworkers, get to know the people that you're working with, get to know other interns as well. I think there's a really special thing about just learning about other people that are working there, learning about other people's journeys. I also encourage you, if you're looking to maybe go into a different type of role in tech and your company offers that, talk to people that are doing that at your company, because there's no better place to network with people that want it, that do your dream job, than the people that currently work your dream job at the company that you're at, right? Um, the other thing I'll say is have consistent check-ins with your manager. I think that's really important, so you can set expectations, see if expectations have changed, get feedback. I think that that is really valuable, because that also shows that, you're willing to do better, and having a growth mindset is literally the number one thing to have during an internship, because that is essentially what most of your managers and recruiters are looking for when they're considering return offers. So that's some of those, so that's a lot of those things that I think a lot of people are doing, which makes me happy. But obviously there are people that don't know how to make their internships very valuable to them. So I would definitely encourage you to do all of those things. And honestly, I think it's very nice to keep a great relationship with your employer, even if you don't get a return offer. Just keeping in touch, maybe, being on good terms with your employer, because again, you never know when you might
Yeah.
go back to them, when you might need them, when you might need your manager for a reference or something like that. I think that's really nice to do as well.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think getting those connections, I think people sometimes think that internships are something that you just keep on your resume, but internships are such a great opportunity to learn and really like expand your horizons, try out new fields, and really like see what you like and how far you can go. And achieving something in an internship, like both me and Tree are doing like a lot of startup stuff. So like when you see the impact of the work that you do, it's really rewarding. And you
Mhm.
only get there if you really like be proactive within the opportunities that you get.
Exactly.
So that's like such like really hits close to home. So yeah, and thank you so much, Ume. Like all of this advice is so like helpful to me, helpful to Shreya, I'm sure, and like helpful to all the students who are gonna be watching this. Do you have like any like last pieces of advice for anyone who's watching?
I think I've said everything that I wanted to say. Just, if you, especially in a job market like today, if you think a lot of your efforts are failing, know that you are not alone, that a lot of people are going through the same thing that you are going through. And it really only takes one yes to make your career trajectory really pop off. So just keep trying until you get that one yes. And big tech isn't the only tech out there. There are startups out there. There are a lot of other companies, Fortune 500 companies out there. Fang, the Microsofts of the world, as someone who works at Microsoft, it's not the only thing out there. As someone who worked at Estee Lauder, my experiences of like how, what kind of work I'm doing, the things that I'm learning, the way that things get done, they're very similar. So, I think you really just need that one yes to really make your career pop off. And if you eventually want to go into big tech, obviously you can do that. But if that's, your first goal and you're not getting it year after year, then like it's okay. Like big tech isn't the only thing that's out there.
Yeah, and I completely agree. I think like sometimes people have a plan, and if everything doesn't go according to that, they think the world's over. But
Mhm.
that's not like really the case. Like, like what do people say? Like the world is your oyster, it's like what you make of it. So like
Exactly.
really take that and run and like put your best foot forward for everything and get the most out of every experience. And thank you so much, Ume, for this call, and for telling us a little bit about yourself and all the experience that you've had. I'm sure people will find it so, so, so helpful.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I know
thank
I
you so
definitely
much.
learned
Oh,
learned
go
so
ahead.
much as like women in data science and trying to break into software engineering roles and CS roles. And yeah, I've personally learned a lot, and yeah, this is just so like valuable. So thank you everyone who's watching, and thank you Ume for hopping on and telling a little about your journey. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you both so much. It was so great speaking to you both, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your day.
You too. Okay, I will stop recording.